Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter number 7, titled Further Inquiries by Vidura. Text number 36. Anuvratanam sisyanam putranam cha dvijotama anapristam api bruyur Guravo dinavatsalah Anuvratanam sisyanam Putranam cha dvijotama Anapristam api bruyur Guravo dinavatsalah Anuvratanam sisyanam Putranam cha dvijotama Anapristam api bruyur Guravo dinavatsalah Putranam cha dvijotama Anapristam api bruyur Guravo dinavatsalah. Word for word translation. Anuvratanam, the followers. Sisyanam, of the disciples. Putranam, of the sons. Cha, also. Dvija Uttama, O best amongst the Brahmanas. Anapristam, that which is not asked for. Api, in spite of. Bruyu, please describe. Gurava, the spiritual masters. Dina Vatsalaha, who are kind to the needy. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. O best among the Brahmanas, those who are spiritual masters are very kind to the needy. They are always kind to their followers, disciples and sons. And without being asked by them, the spiritual master describes all that is knowledge. Purport. There are many subjects to be known from the bona fide spiritual master. The followers, disciples, and sons are all on one level for the bona fide spiritual master. And he is always kind to them and always speaks to them on transcendental subjects, even though he is not asked by them. That is the nature of the bona fide spiritual master. Vidura appealed to Maitreya Muni to speak on subjects about which he might not have asked. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksuramritam Yena Tasmei Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So thank you for coming to Srimad Bhagavatam class today. So we're continuing our discussion from 3rd Canto, Chapter 7, titled Further Inquiries by Vidura. So we saw at the start of this chapter, Vidura, he asks 2 questions, then Maitra Rishi, he answers those questions. Then after Maitra Rishi, he answers the first 2 questions of Vidura. We saw in this chapter how then now Vidura, he is listed out a whole long series of verses of many different questions. And today he's finally, now the questions are starting to end. And today's verse is interesting. After asking, I don't know, maybe 10, 20 different questions on so many other different subject matters, today Vidura is saying, O best among the Brahmanas, those who are spiritual masters are very kind to the needy. They are always kind to their followers, disciples and sons. And without being asked by them, the spiritual master describes all that is knowledge. So what is Vidura trying to say by this translation? Prabhupada, he mentions that if you read the last line of the purport, Prabhupada explains what Vidura is trying to actually say. Vidura appealed to Maitreya Muni to speak on subjects about which he might not have asked. So this is something, that one thing we can learn from Vidura is how eager he is to hear about Krishna Katha, how eager he is to hear about transfer knowledge. Just like, let's say we're in school or university and some teacher, he gives some lecture on physics or biology, mathematics or engineering. And then finally after talking for 1 hour, he asks, are there any questions? And then no one has any question, but one student puts up his hand and he says, I have 2 questions. Then he asks those 2 questions, and the maths teacher or the physics teacher, he answers those 2 questions. And then the student, again, he puts up his hand and says, thank you very much for answering these 2 questions which I had. By the way, I also have some more questions. And then the student lists out another 20 questions. And if we'd see that in at university or school, we'll think, where is this person from? Which planet has this person come? How can he have 10 questions, 20 questions at the end of the lecture? We're all bored. We just want to go and do our thing, And this guy, at time of questions, at the end of the class, he's reading out this whole list of 20 different questions. So this is what Vidura is doing, that he first asked 2 questions, he gets those answered, and now he's asked this whole long series of 20 questions or so. And then after asking so many different questions on so many different subject matters, what does he finally say? By the way, please answer all these different questions which I've asked. And also, if there are some other topics which I didn't ask about in these questions, please also talk about that also. So from this we can see the spiritual greed Vidura has to hear about transfer of knowledge. Although he asks so many numerous different questions on so many different subject matters, still he's not satisfied. And still at the end he's saying, by the way, even though I've asked so many different questions, still I think there's some lot of other topics which I didn't ask about. All these other topics which I didn't ask about, you please also, out of your mercy, out of your compassion, you please also preach to me. You please also explain to me these other topics which I didn't ask about. So this is the intense spiritual greed that Vidura is showing, which we can all follow and take inspiration from. How a devotee, he always wants to hear more and more about Krishna, and he never gets satiated. And we can see this through Vidura because Vidura is none other than Yamaraj, one of the 12 Mahajans. So he's showing by practical example this mood of a devotee. And also Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, the language and the words devotees use, if we try and go a bit deep and look through the word for translation, look at what words they're using to address each other, then we can see the sweetness which is there in Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita, how such beautiful language and words they're using to encourage each other, to inspire each other to speak about Krishna. In today's verse, Vidura is saying, he's using the word Gurava. In the last line he says, Gurava Dina Vatsalaha. So first thing, Vidura is saying that it is the nature of Brahmanas, it is the nature of spiritual masters, that they are very kind to the needy. When they see someone in need, when they see someone who's very poor, when they see someone who's struggling in life, when they see someone who's very much suffering in mature existence, then the natural mood or attitude of a devotee or brahmana or guru or spiritual master is, when they see someone in need, then out of compassion they go and help them. So firstly, Vidura is saying that this is the nature of all spiritual masters, that they're very compassionate to the needy. And Vidura is saying, he's addressing Maitreya Rishi as Dina Vatsalaha. Dina means one who is very lowly or fallen or very much in need, very much suffering, very much in distress. And Vatsala means one who is very kind to that person, very compassionate to that person. So Vidura, he's using this language to inspire Maitreya Rishi. He's saying that Maitreya Rishi, you're Dina Vatsala, you're very kind to the needy, you're very kind to the poor. And by the way, I'm that very needy person, I'm that very poor person. And because you're Dina Vatsala, you please be kind upon me, and you please shower your mercy upon me. Whatever topics which I didn't ask about, you please also discuss and speak to me about those topics, even which I didn't ask about. So in this way, Vidura very nicely, he's inspiring Maitreya Rishi to talk more and more about Krishna. And the same thing similar mood we also have in Guru Puja. Like in the last verse of the Guru Puja praise, we sing Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu. So in that line we're saying that Srila Prabhupada, you're an ocean of mercy, and Adama means one who is the most fallen or the most lowest. Bandhu. So we're saying that Prabhupada, you're the ocean of mercy, and Prabhupada, you are the friend of the most fallen, you are the friend of the lowest of mankind. So when we're saying that, what are we saying? We're saying, Prabhupada, you're the friend of the most fallen, you're the friend of the lowest. I am one of those lowest type of people, I am one of those fallen persons. So because you're Adama Janara Bandhu, because you're the friend of the fallen, you please be merciful unto me. Otherwise, if we're not going through that mood of thinking ourselves fallen, if we're not going through that mood of thinking ourselves lowly, then how can we beg for the mercy? If we think we're doing very good, if we think we're very great, then there's no need for our mercy, for us to get the mercy. So this is the mood of the devotee. He puts himself into that humble mood of being very lowly and fallen. And by that consciousness, by that attitude, he's able to attract mercy. Just like if someone is very rich and he has a lot of money and he can give this money in charity to many different people. But he'll see which persons are in need of money more. Those persons who are suffering more, naturally the rich person will be inclined to give his wealth to those persons. Those persons who are doing all right, they have a nice salary, they have a full-time job, working in accounting or engineering, then why would the rich person give money to those persons who are doing good, who have money, who have a house and other things? But if someone is really struggling, they're on the streets, they have no food, they have no shelter, then naturally the rich person will be inspired, more impelled to give his money to that person. So in the same way with spiritual life, the devotees of the Lord, they have the spiritual wealth of Krishna consciousness, of Krishna bhakti. We're hearing in the conversation between Ramananda Roy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was asking, what is the greatest wealth in this world? In Ramananda Roy, he explains that the greatest capitalist, the most wealthy person in this world is that person who has love, pure love for Shri Shri Radha Gopinath, for Shri Shri Radha Krishna. So these great devotees, Mahabhagavats, they have this the most greatest wealth of love for Shri Shri Radha Gopinath. And just like a rich person, he'll see who's actually struggling, who's suffering the most, and based on that, he'll be inspired to give person to that person who's needing that mercy the most. In the same way, devotees, when they see someone very fallen, struggling, then naturally they feel very inspired and compelled to shower their compassion upon them. On the other hand, there'll be other persons who will be very proud, thinking, yes, I'm doing all right, I'm doing good, and then naturally they won't be so inspired to come and reach out to those persons. That's why we'll see in Chaitanya Bhagavat, there is one instance where Advaita Acharya, he requests Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Advaita Acharya tells Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, my Lord, you please indiscriminately give your mercy, indiscriminately give love of Godhead to every single person in this universe, regardless of their background, qualification, where they are, what body they have, regardless of all other characteristics, you please indiscriminately give your mercy to anyone and everyone, except for those who are proud. So again, the same thing, Advaita Acharya, he requests Mahaprabhu in Chaitanya Bhagavat. So from this we can see that if we want to attract more and more mercy, then we need to approach the Lords, we need to approach the spiritual master, we need to approach the devotees in a humble mood. If we're approaching them with a proud mood, then just like a rich person, if he sees someone doing very nicely in life, then he'll think, what's the point of giving my money to this person? This person's already well off. He's doing fine. So in the same way, if we have this anartha of pride, then that would restrict the mercy coming towards us. Another example given by devotees is just like there's a mother bird, and the mother bird has 5, 6 little baby birds, and the baby birds, they haven't grown their wings, they can't go out and fetch food for themselves. So the mother bird will go out and find some food, find some worms or insects, and bring it back to the nest. And then when the mother bird comes back to the nest, all the little baby birds, they'll be crying out to the mother, give me food, I'm hungry. And who would the mother bird give the food to first? The baby bird that cries out the loudest, the baby bird which shouts out the loudest in most desperation, the mother bird should be inspired to give, whatever food she's brought to that bird who's crying out the loudest. So in the same way it's explained by devotees, that for those devotees who are going in that humble mood to approaching the Lords, approaching the spiritual master, thinking themselves to be actually fallen and actually in need of mercy, and with that intensity of humility, when they cry out, they attract more mercy. So in this way, we can learn this beautiful quality from Vidura. And one other thing, yes, regarding the eagerness to hear, going back to Vidura's eagerness to hear about Krishna, we can also see the same thing with Parikshit Maharaj. If you're in the first canto towards the end, there's one famous verse where Parikshit Maharaj is telling, when Sukadeva Goswami comes, one of the first things Parikshit Maharaj, he tells the sages, or Sukadeva Goswami, is that please don't think I am worried about my upcoming death by this snake bird. You just please immediately start talking about Krishna Katha. Don't waste a single moment. I want to just hear about Krishna Katha, and I don't care about this snake bird or whatever magical thing this Brahmana boy has created. I'm not at all worried about this. I just want to hear about Krishna Katha. Please don't waste any time. Immediately start talking about Krishna. And in Chaitanya Charitamrita, this verse by Maharaj Parikshit is given as an example of avyata kalatvam. So in Nectar of Devotion, we're studying the different symptoms of bhava bhakti. And one of the symptoms of a devotee who is on the level of bhava is this quality of avyata kalatvam. And avyata kalatvam means that this devotee, in the level of bhava bhakti, in the level of preliminary stage of Godhead, he doesn't want to waste a single moment not being engaged in Krishna consciousness. So this verse by Maharaj Parikshit is quoted as an example of that. That Maharaj Parikshit is so eager to engage every single moment of his life in hearing about Krishna Katha that he is urging the sages, please don't waste a single moment, immediately start talking about Krishna. Don't worry, don't think that I'm afraid of this snake bird. I'm not at all worried, I just want to hear about Krishna. And from again, some same thing we can learn from Maharaj Parikshit's questions. For example, 8th canto, he asks about hearing about Manvantara avatars, or in general about the different Manus and Manvantaras. And Sukadeva Goswami, he will just briefly mention, okay, during this Manvantara, this person was the Manu, these were the demigods, these were the sages, and then this was the avatar. And in one verse, he will just summarize, like in this Manvantara, there was Lord Vishnu came and he saved Gajendra. In one verse, he will just summarize. But Maharaj Parikshit, immediately he will stop Sukadeva Goswami and he will say, can you please, talk or discuss a bit more about how exactly did Vishnu save this big elephant called Gajendra. And then again, we'll get a whole 1-2 chapters about the whole story of Gajendra. Then again, Sukadeva Goswami continue, okay, in this Manvantara, the Lord came as Kurma avatar and he balanced the Mandara mountain and they got Vasuki and they churned the milk ocean. In this way, Sukadeva Goswami, in just one verse, he will summarize the whole Leela. But again, Maharaj Parikshit will put up his hand and stop Sukadeva Goswami. Can you please describe more about this pastime? Why exactly did Vishnu come and take the form of a tortoise? Why were they churning the milk ocean? What was the purpose? This way again, another whole series of questions Maharaj Parikshit will ask. And because he asks these questions, again we'll get another whole 1, 2, 3 chapters about the whole Leela of the churning of the milk ocean. So in this way we see the same thing with Maharaj Parikshit, his eagerness to hear more about Krishna. Then 9th canto, Maharaj Parikshit will hear about all the descendants of the Sun dynasty, in which Lord Ramachandra comes. And then he'll hear all the descendants coming in the Moon dynasty. And towards the end of the description of the Moon dynasty, Krishna or Sukadeva Goswami will talk obviously about the Yadus, about Krishna, his appearance. And then again Sukadeva Goswami, just in one verse, he'll summarize the whole Krishna Lila, the whole Krishna book. If you read the last chapter of 9th canto, right towards the end, Sukadeva Goswami very expertly, he summarizes the entire Krishna book in just one verse. So in one verse, he just summarizes all of Krishna Lila and just gives it to Maharaj Parikshit. But again, Maharaj Parikshit, start of 10th canto, he puts up his hand and he says, by the way, can you please talk and discuss more about these beautiful pastimes about Krishna? I want to hear more and more about Krishna. So in this way, we can appreciate this fact of, again, the eagerness Maharaj Parikshit is showing to hear about Krishna. And many times, we glorify Sukadeva Goswami, that it is by the mercy of Srila Sukadeva Goswami that we have Bhagavatam. If it wasn't for Sukadeva Goswami, we wouldn't have this. But just as much as we should be grateful to Sukadeva Goswami, I was thinking that we should be equally grateful to Maharaj Parikshit. Because imagine if Maharaj Parikshit didn't put up his hand and ask, can you please tell us more about how Vishnu saved Gajendra? If he didn't ask that question, then Sukadeva Goswami would just continue on with the next Manvantara. We wouldn't have gotten a whole chapter of so many beautiful prayers by Gajendra. Imagine if Maharaj Parikshit, he didn't put up his hand and ask, why is it that the Lord assumed the form of a tortoise? Why is it that they churned the milk ocean? Imagine if he didn't ask that question. If he didn't ask that question, then Sukadeva Goswami would just continue on to the next Manvantara. We wouldn't have heard, we wouldn't have read about the whole churning of the milk ocean and the truce between the demigods and the demons of Vasuki and them churning the ocean. We wouldn't have heard about the whole pastime of Dhanvantari, Mohini Murti, all of those beautiful pastimes, descriptions we would have missed out. Imagine if Maharaj Parikshit didn't ask the question, can you please tell us more about Krishna Lila, can you please tell us more about this? Then the entire 10th canto we wouldn't have got. So just as like we are so grateful to Sukadeva Goswami for giving us Bhagavatam, we should be equally grateful to Maharaj Parikshit. If we didn't ask these questions, inspiring Sukadeva Goswami to ask more and more, then a lot of the Bhagavatam we wouldn't have got. So in this way, not only is the speaker of Bhagavatam important, but the audience of Bhagavatam, the audience of Krishna Katha, they are equally as important. They play an equally important role in churning the nectar of Krishna consciousness. And going to the next theme here about mercy to the needy. So this is as we were discussing earlier on, this is the nature of the Vaishnava, that is para dukkha dukhi. When he sees someone in need, he feels compassionate for them and he tries to help them. So one thing we can ask ourselves, how is it that we can also acquire this quality of being compassionate to others? Firstly, it's explained by devotees. Before we can be compassionate to others, firstly we have to be happy ourselves. Because just like going back to the example of the rich person, before someone can give money in charity, firstly they need to have money themselves. If they themselves are poor, if they themselves are struggling, then how can they go out of their way to give charity to others? So in the same way, according to the Shastras, only those who are very happy and blissful in Krishna consciousness, only those who have that wealth of Krishna bhakti, only they can give mercy to others, only they can be an instrument of compassionate for others. So that's the first point, that before we can give mercy to others, firstly we ourselves need to be practicing Krishna consciousness, and we ourselves need to be happy and blissfully engaged in Krishna consciousness. Then naturally, because we're happy, we see others out there struggling, then naturally we'll be inspired to help them. Otherwise, if we ourselves are struggling, then how can we help others? It's like one drowning man trying to save another drowning man. So it's not going to work. And the second criteria I was thinking is that firstly we need to be happy, and secondly we need to practically see others suffering, which is difficult sometimes because we go out there on the streets, we go to town hall, Pitt Street Mall, and we see that actually everyone is having a good time. Everyone is walking together hand in hand. Friends are going together, laughing and giggling together. Guy and girl are going hand in hand. And it seems that everyone out there in the city of Sydney, they're having a good time. So it doesn't seem like all those people out there are actually struggling. All those people are actually suffering. So then naturally we'll think that what's the point of showing mercy to them? They're having a good time. They don't seem to be in need of mercy. And one time we were asking this question to my Guru Maharaj, and my Guru Maharaj was saying that that's why we have to see through the eyes of the Shastra. If we see through our own material vision, yes, it will seem, due to the Maya's covering potency, it seems that everyone's actually having a good time. And that's why we need to see through the eyes of the Shastra that actually people aren't having a good time. Actually, people out there are struggling and really suffering in mature existence. That's why it's very important to read Bhagavatam every day. Because one theme which will come up again and again in Bhagavatam is about the nature of this world, about how this world is full of suffering. Because in every canto, there will be stories of particular persons who are actually going through suffering, who are actually going through a lot of problems in life. Yes, Bhagavatam is full of devotees of Krishna, but all those devotees of Krishna, which Bhagavatam talks about, all those devotees of Krishna, they go through a lot of suffering. All those devotees of Krishna, they go through a lot of different problems and challenges in life. So in this way, Bhagavatam, it reminds us that this material world is actually a place full of suffering. So in this way, by seeing through the eyes of the Shastra, we can appreciate this fact of how people out there are actually suffering. Although it might not seem to us that they're suffering, we should train our eyes to see through the eyes of the Shastra that actually all these persons are suffering. And if we ourselves are blissfully engaged in Krishna consciousness, then naturally we'll be compassionate. Then naturally we'll go out of our way to help them. And this quality of being compassionate to others is actually a quality which very much attracts Krishna's attention. At the start of Nectar of Devotion, in the introduction, Prabhupada describes different characteristics of devotional service. And one characteristic Prabhupada explains is that the quality of devotional service is such that devotional service attracts Krishna himself. Although Krishna is all attractive, devotional service is so great that devotional service attracts Krishna himself, who is the all-attractive Supreme Personality Godhead. And in that section, Prabhupada explains that the personification of devotional service is Srimati Radharani. And although Krishna is all-attractive, although Krishna is Madan Mohan, one who enchants Cupid, Srimati Radharani, who is the personification of devotional service, she is Madan Mohini Mohini, which means by her devotional service, she attracts the all-attractive Supreme Personality Godhead. So in this way, the greatness of devotional service is glorified. Devotional service is so great that it brings Krishna under one's control. It attracts even the all-attractive Personality Godhead. In CC, there's a list of qualities given for Srimati Radharani, 25 different qualities. And one of the qualities for Srimati Radharani is that she is very compassionate and she is very kind. And it's explained by devotees that out of all the wonderful 25 qualities that Srimati Radharani possesses, which attracts even Krishna himself, that one quality of Srimati Radharani which attracts Krishna more than all the other qualities is this quality of compassion, is this quality of being kind to others. So in the same way, if we want to attract the attention of Krishna, if we want to get the blessings of Gopinath, get his merciful glance, then we need to engage in devotional service. And more than engaging in devotional service, if we can cultivate this quality of compassion, of showing mercy to other living entities, then this really attracts Krishna's attention. And that's why we see the same thing Krishna explaining at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, that one who takes this message and shares it with others out of compassion, trying to help the fallen conditioned souls, that person is the most dear to me. And in the future, there will never be anyone more dear to me than that person. So this quality of compassion is something very important for us to cultivate. And it's Radhana Maharaj explains the process, how it's like a step-by-step process of how to cultivate compassion. He says that firstly, we need to be grateful. So that's like step number one. We need to be grateful for whatever we have. My Guru Maharaj, I was hearing in one lecture, my Guru Maharaj is explaining that the first thing we should do when we come, early in the morning, when we come for Mangalarti, and we sing and dance in front of the Lordship, Shri Radha Gopinath, the first thing we should do to start our day is offer our gratitude towards the deities. Right from the morning, start of the day, from Mangalarti, we should come in front of the deities and offer our gratitude. Thank you for allowing for me to stay in the temple. Thank you for giving me so much opportunity to sing and dance in front of you. Thank you for giving me the Sangha of so many wonderful Vaishnavas. Thank you for giving me so much opportunity to read the Shastras. Thank you for giving me opportunity to speak from the Shastras. In this way, right from the start of a day, my Guru Maharaj explains, we should start a day with this quality of gratitude. Right from the start of the day, we should come in front of deities and express our gratitude for everything they've been doing for us. So this is step number one. His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj explains. Firstly, we need to cultivate this quality of gratitude. And this is something very easy. We can just meditate on all the mercy we've been getting from devotees by Krishna, and we can cultivate this. Then next comes gratitude, and then I think next is compassion, right? After gratitude comes humility. So if we're naturally grateful for everything we're given, and we contemplate on our situation that actually, who am I? Just a couple of years ago, I was engaging in so many sinful activities. I didn't know anything. And now, Krishna is so merciful unto me. He's giving me so many nice services to do in front of me. He's allowing me to stay in the temple with him. He's giving me the Sangha, so many wonderful Vaishnavas. So naturally, when we meditate on the fortune we've been given, and meditate on our fallen position, and at the same time the great mercy we've been given, then naturally we feel very humble. That although I'm so fallen, I've gotten so much mercy by Krishna, so then naturally humility will come. Then next, His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj explains, next comes compassion. So compassion is the third stage. So in that sense, it's a bit difficult to cultivate. Only after cultivating humility can we truly exhibit this quality of compassion. But nevertheless, we should aim or endeavor to cultivate this quality. One time, like many times, we have this question that it's explained that through devotional service, naturally these qualities will automatically come and we don't have to endeavor for it. But at the same time, other speakers, they will say that, we should focus on all these qualities and try to acquire them. So I remember one time I was asking His Grace Sankarshan Maharaj and this question, that should we actually endeavor to acquire these qualities, or should we just do devotional service and these qualities will just naturally come up in us? And Maharaj, he gave very nice answer. Maharaj explained. He gave the example of a candle. He said, if you take a candle and you want to burn down the candle very quickly, which side of the candle should you light? Should you light the left side or the right side? He said, if the fastest way to burn down a candle is that you light the candle on both sides. You light it on the left side and you light it on the right side. So in this way the candle burns from both sides and you can very quickly extinguish the whole candle. So in the same way Maharaj explains that we need to do both. We need to do devotional service, hoping for the mercy of the Lord to come and hoping that these qualities will be naturally come up in us by purification of the heart. And at the same time, we also need to put that endeavor to acquire these qualities. We need to also put that endeavor on focusing. Today in Bhagavatam class, I heard about this quality of compassion. Today, during the day, let me meditate on this. Let me also try and do something to try and acquire this quality, to try and cultivate this quality. So in this way, Sankarshan Maharaj explained that we need to do both. On one hand, we need to have that hope that yes, I can't acquire this by myself. I need the mercy of Guru and Krishna. So on one hand, we continue our devotional serving, hoping we'll get the mercy of the Vaishnavas, mercy of Guru and Krishna. And there's hopefully one day these qualities will come. But at the same time, we shouldn't just lay back and thinking, one day Krishna will bestow this quality upon me. But at the same time, we ourselves should also put that endeavor to acquiring these qualities. Another example that comes to mind is His Grace Gokuleshwar Prabhu. He was giving this example. This point came up, or this question came up about the causeless mercy of the Lord. That Krishna's mercy is causeless, which means we can't do anything to acquire Krishna's mercy, so then, why do anything? We just wait and Krishna will just give. So one example the Gokuleshwar Prabhu gave is just like we're on a highway and we're wanting to get a lift. And if we just stand there and just hoping that out of the causeless mercy of one of the drivers, someone will stop and someone will take us, then it will be a slow process. But one who is intelligent, he will put his hands up and he'll rave, please, please, I need a lift, please, please, I need a lift, please, please stop. So, yes, it's by the causeless mercy of those drivers on the highway, like he can't do anything to force those persons on the driver to stop and give him a lift, but he can inspire them, he can beg for their mercy, he can show his enthusiasm, his desperation by putting his hands up and asking, please, I need a lift, please, I need a lift. So in the same way, Prabhu was explaining, yes, we can't do anything to force Krishna to give us mercy, but at the same time, we can put our hands up and show Krishna how eager we are, how greedy we are to get His mercy, how greedy we are to get His blessings. By engaging in devotional service with our heart and serving the Vaishnavas in this way, Prabhu was explaining, this is like us putting our hands up in desperation, crying out for the mercy. So in this way, we can also acquire this quality of compassion, as I was mentioned before. This quality very much attracts Gopinath's attention. And this is the one quality of Srimati Radharani that attracts Krishna more than all the other qualities. And the last point, which I thought we'll discuss, Vidura, I'll read the translation again. Vidura is saying, O best among the Brahmanas, those who are spiritual masters are very kind to the needy. They are always kind to their followers, disciples and sons. And without being asked by them, the spiritual master describes all that is knowledge. So Vidura here, he's talking about this one quality of Vaishnava. And that out of his compassion of Vaishnava, it's not that he waits for someone to come to him and say, I have a question, or he waits for a conditioned soul to come to him, please, I'm struggling, please give me mercy. No, the Vaishnava, he's so compassionate that even without being asked, he goes out of his way to give them mercy. And we see this in 11th canto, there's this one verse which glorifies Mahaprabhu. And this verse explains that Mahaprabhu, he is running after people, trying to give them mercy. So this is the mood of the Vaishnavas, this is the mood of Mahaprabhu himself. He's showing through his own example the mood of a Vaishnava, that it's not that they just sit down and just wait for people to come to them, please sir, I'm struggling, and only then they give them mercy. No, they, from out of their own causeless mercy, they run after people and they go after people to give them mercy. So this is also one quality we can also meditate on and try and acquire. And in the recent CC classes, we were hearing about how Mahaprabhu, he was practically doing this during his South India tour. It's very nicely explained by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami that Mahaprabhu, he started his South India tour. And again, we see the same thing. It's not that people were coming to Mahaprabhu, falling at his lotus feet and saying, Mahaprabhu, I'm struggling in the ocean of material existence, please give me mercy. No, Mahaprabhu, out of his own causeless accord, even without being asked, he himself would run after people and give them mercy. It's mentioned that whichever villages Mahaprabhu went through, whoever, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains, that whoever would come in front of Mahaprabhu, Mahaprabhu would immediately catch them and tell them, chant the glories of Hari Hari, chant Hare Krishna. And then Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains, Mahaprabhu would spend some time with them, giving that particular person his association. And then after some time, after asking them to chant Hare Krishna, Mahaprabhu would bid them farewell and ask them, now you please return back to your village. And this way Mahaprabhu will empower them and send them to go chant Hare Krishna. Then that person, it's explained in CC, that person would leave and go to his particular village. And then again, that person being empowered by Mahaprabhu, he will ask his villagers to please also chant Hare Hare, chant Hare Krishna. Then they will also chant Hare Krishna. Not only that, it's explained in one verse in CC, it's explained that what to speak of, physically coming and talking to this devotee. There will be particular persons in the village who wouldn't even directly hear him talk or directly hear his, preaching. They would just simply look at this particular empowered devotee, or they would get the glance of this particular devotee, and just by looking at this devotee, they immediately become Vaishnavas. Just by getting the glance of this empowered devotee, they would immediately become Vaishnavas. So again, we can see the power of bhakti. So bhakti is so potent that if a pure devotee, he has pure bhakti in his heart, just by looking at someone, he can make that person to a devotee. Just by giving a glance and just smiling at them, or by a ordinary person, just by looking at that particular Vaishnava, immediately they can be transformed into a pure devotee of Lord. So this is how powerful and potent bhakti is. In the Nectar of Devotion, again, we're reading in the chapter of Bhava Bhakti, it's given, Rupa Goswami, he's explaining, that one can come to the stage of Bhava Bhakti by gradually, doing sadhana bhakti, going through the stages, engaging in the regulatory principles of bhakti. But, Rupa Goswami explains, another way one can reach Bhava Bhakti is by getting some extraordinary special mercy of a pure devotee of the Lord. And then he explains 3 different ways one can get the extraordinary special mercy of the Lord. And one of those ways he's explaining is if one gets glanced upon by a pure devotee, or if one personally sees the wonderful transformed form of a pure Vaishnava, then immediately he can become transformed into a pure devotee. Another example Rupa Goswami gives is if a pure devotee, he wishes well for us, or a pure devotee in his heart, he wishes, I wish this person became a devotee, then just by that desire of that pure devotee for our welfare, that soul will immediately become a pure devotee. Example of this Rupa Goswami gives is of Prahlad Maharaj. So Rupa Goswami explains that Narad Muni, he desired deep within his heart that I wish that this child within the womb of Kayadu, this child Prahlad, I wish that this child becomes a great devotee of the Lord. And just by that desire, just by that well wishes of Narad Muni, it's explained by Rupa Goswami, Prahlad Maharaj, he became a great devotee. I forgot the third reason. One is by sight, second by the well wishes. Do you remember the third reason? The third way one can get the extraordinary mercy of devotee. Okay, there's another way Rupa Goswami explains in that chapter of Bhava Bhakti. But again, we can see the potency of bhakti. A devotee, he can be so potent, he can be so empowered, that he can just look at someone, just give a glance at a person, and that person can immediately transform into a devotee. A devotee's bhakti can be so potent that he can just look upon another particular Vaishnava and think that I wish this fallen conditioned soul, he has some sincerity, he has some good qualities, I wish this person becomes a great devotee of the Lord. And just by that desire, Krishna can immediately transform that person into a great Mahabhagat, into a great devotee. So this is what these empowered devotees of Mahaprabhu were doing. It's given that Mahaprabhu, he would physically catch someone, speak to them, chant Hari Hari, and then embrace them. Yes, at the end he would embrace them before leaving them, and then they will be transformed. But these empowered devotees, Krishna Kaviraj Goswami explains, they were so empowered that just by looking at people, they were making them into devotees. So in one sense, it seems that these empowered devotees, their bhakti is even more extraordinary than Mahaprabhu's bhakti. And Prabhupada in one purport, he clarifies this in Chaitanya Charitamrita. In one purport, in CC, Prabhupada explains that the nature of the parampara system is such that every spiritual master, every teacher, they empower their student to do even greater devotional service than they themselves do. And Prabhupada, he gives the example of just like a father. A father might be a great businessman, with a lot of businesses, a lot of money, very successful in life. And the father, out of love for his child, would wish that I wish my child becomes an even greater businessman than me. So Prabhupada writes, this is the mood of all spiritual masters, this is the mood of the Guru Parampara, that every Guru Maharaj, every spiritual master wishes and desires that his student or his disciple do even greater devotional service than they themselves. And Prabhupada, he writes this in relation to Nityananda Prabhu, where Mahaprabhu is telling Nityananda Prabhu that, my dear Nityananda Prabhu, you can do that thing which even I can't do myself. I'm just liberating all these very well-off, very aristocratic, very intelligent, high-class persons of society. But you, Nityananda Prabhu, you can do something which even I can't do. You can go and save, the most fallen souls like Jagai, Madai, the most sinful and fallen classes of persons, which even I myself can't do. And in that section, Prabhupada writes that this is the nature of the parampara system. Every spiritual master, they empower their student to do even greater devotional service than they themselves. And we can see that the example with Srila Prabhupada himself. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, he spread the glories of Mahaprabhu all over India through the Gaudiya Math, and then empowered Srila Prabhupada to do even greater devotional service by spreading Krishna consciousness all around the world, all around planet Earth, through all the different cities, towns, and villages. So in this way we see Mahaprabhu, he is an example of this, of someone without being asked, going after people out of compassion and trying to deliver them, trying to save them. So in this way it's very nicely explained how Mahaprabhu, he spread the holy name, he made everyone in South India a devotee. So first he will go through a village, catch someone, make that person a devotee, and that person would leave and go back to his village, and then that person will convert everyone in that village into a devotee. Then whoever was visiting that village from another village, they would become devotee, they would go back to their village. So in this way, the whole of South India would become a devotee. It's just like, I was trying to think about this, like how exactly it's working. It's just like, say we go on book distribution, and we give a book to someone, and we distribute a lot of books, and someone from Port Macquarie, he's visiting Sydney, and that person from Port Macquarie, he gets a book, he becomes a devotee, he goes back to Port Macquarie, and then he makes everyone in Port Macquarie into a devotee, and then at that time, someone from Byron Bay, he happens to be visiting Port Macquarie, and then he becomes a devotee, he goes to Byron Bay, then he makes all of Byron Bay into a devotee, and at that time in Byron Bay, there happens to be someone from Queensland, Brisbane visiting. So then that person becomes a devotee, and he goes back to his hometown, Brisbane, then he makes all of Brisbane to a devotee, and someone at that time happens to be there from Darwin. And then that person being a devotee, he goes back to Darwin, and then all of Darwin becomes a devotee, and this way, we can imagine how whole of Australia would become devotees. So this is the way, the tactics Mahaprabhu was using to transform all of South India into devotees. And we can use those same tactics now to liberate all of Australia also, to distribute more and more books, cultivate more and more people, make more and more preaching centers, and we can use those same tactics, empowering other individuals, making them into self-sufficient devotees, and empowering them to go back to their own towns and villages and sharing this mercy with their own towns and villages. So we can also continue in the footsteps of Mahaprabhu and try and do the same thing that Mahaprabhu did in South India here in Australia. I'll stop here. Is there any questions or comments before we... Yes, sir. Okay, so how do we develop spiritual greed? From my experience, the most easiest method is just to associate with those devotees who have that greed. Just by watching them, seeing them, show that that spiritual greed in action, we'll also be inspired, and that quality will also rub off on us. And that's why sadhu sangha is so important. Just like some days, we might be a bit sleepy, like let's say during morning japa, some days we might be a bit tired, sleepy, and not so enthusiastic to chant, but because we're chanting japa with other devotees, on that particular day when we're done, we'll see some other devotee, very nicely chanting, like Ishwar Prabhu, and then even though we're not feeling so inspired, by looking at him we think, oh, okay, oh man, he's chanting very nice, I also should also chant, Otherwise we feel, we feel like we're in Maya. But if we're chanting by ourselves in a room, then there's no impetus, there's no that extra push to also chant, because we're just there by ourselves, there's no one else in the room, there's no one watching. So naturally we go to our cozy mood, and we won't put that extra endeavor. But if we're chanting in a room full of other devotees, then watching all the other devotees chanting so sincerely, we'll also be inspired. And also we don't want to look bad in front of other people also. So then naturally, at least for name's sake, we'll put the extra endeavor to chant. So that's why sadhu sangha is so important. If we're surrounding ourselves, my Guru Maharaj explains that the more sadhu sangha we have, the more association of wonderful Vaishnavas we have in our spiritual life, the more wealthy we are in spiritual life. So that's why one who is actually intelligent, he will plan his life in such a way that he maximizes the sadhu sangha he has. So whenever there's any program, kirtan, Krishna Katha, Bhagavatam class, any service opportunity with other devotees, he'll always put his hand up to go and get that sangha of other devotees. And as devotees, we should always endeavor to never be by ourselves. Whenever we're doing anything, sadhana or devotion, we should do that with other devotees. Because again, like I was mentioning before, when we're by ourselves, it's just us and our mind will always push us to go through the easy way, the lazy way, and we'll go into our cozy zone. But when we're surrounded by other devotees, at least for the sake of, acting good in front of other devotees, we'll behave ourselves. We'll act more strict with ourselves, and we'll also take inspiration, seeing what other wonderful things other Vaishnavas are doing. So, easiest way I would say is by developing spiritual greed is just find those devotees who have that greed, and by seeing them, taking inspiration from them, appreciating that, we'll also acquire, like it's given in Bhagavatam, when we notice a good quality of another Vaishnava, and we appreciate that, then we get 1/6 of that good quality. And my Guru Maharaj explains in his book, Bhakti Bhava, that the super soul, he is not sleeping within our hearts. Our super soul in our hearts is very active. And it's Krishna himself who's personally acting as a super soul in the heart of the devotee. Like in teachings of Lord Chaitanya, Prabhupada explains at the start that that generally it's given that Vishnu, he is in charge of maintenance. But in the case of Krishna's devotees, Krishna, he doesn't send Vishnu to act as the super soul, but Krishna, he himself personally comes and acts as the super soul in the hearts. And my Guru Maharaj mentions that whenever we see another good quality of another Vaishnava and we appreciate that, then the super soul immediately becoming pleased, immediately the super soul starts transforming our heart to also acquire that quality. Say we notice another devotee cooking nicely and we think, oh, this devotee, he's cooking so nicely, or this devotee, he has singing so nicely for Sri Sri Radha Gopinath, then the super soul being pleased by us appreciating another Vaishnava's quality, the super soul will transform our heart to help us also acquire that quality of cooking nicely or singing nicely. So just by sadhu sangha, I would say that's the very easy and most practical way to acquire the quality. You had some? Okay, the third one is the speech. Yeah. Okay. So one way is by the well wishes of the devotee, another by a glance or by seeing the devotee, and the third way one can get the special mercy is by hearing the words coming out from the mouth of a pure devotee. So obviously for that there is numerous examples of someone hearing pure Krishna Katha coming from the mouth of a devotee and his heart being immediately transformed. Thank you. Yes, sir. Yes, so someone might have this excuse that, okay, we need to be compassionate, Namdela quality compassionate, and then go out and reach out to fallen conditioned souls. And someone might say, but I don't have this quality of compassion, this is a very high quality, so why should I go out? So for that we just follow the instructions of the spiritual master. So we're all followers of Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada and all of his disciples, followers, they're all instructing us that you go out and share this mercy with others. So although we might not have, that same compassion that pure devotees have, the same compassion other devotees have, although that compassion is lacking in the heart, still out of duty we should go out and share that mercy with others. And just by doing it out of duty consciousness, that compassion will come naturally over a period of time. Initially it will be out of duty, just like, like riding a bike. Initially, it will be like a bit mechanical, us riding a bike, but after a while, after we just do it, then it will just become part of a system. So initially we just do it as a duty. Prabhupada is asking us, okay, we need to preach, okay, I need to go out and distribute books, I need to, give classes, I need to cultivate people, I need to distribute prasad, go out and Harinam. So as a duty we should do, even though we're not feeling compassionate. And over time, as we keep on doing it out of duty, a time will come when naturally compassion will come. Naturally, as the years go by of hearing again and again Bhagavatam, as the years go by of year in and year out, sincerely engaging in devotional service, naturally that compassion will come after a period of time. Then, not only will we be preaching out of duty, but we'll also be preaching, because we have that desire to actually help the people. So, over a period of time will come. But even though we might not have it, we should still do it as a matter of duty. Because Mahaprabhu, he's even asking, he's commanding all of his followers, Yara Deko Tariko, Krishna Pades, Amar Agya. So he's saying, Amar Agya, on my order, all of you go out and preach this message of Krishna consciousness to whoever you meet. So, and Prabhupada also, he's saying this, that for what I have given you, there's no way you can repay me. For what I've given you, the only way, but if you want to attempt to repay your debt to me, then you preach as vigorously as I'm preaching. So there's no way we can ever repay our debt to Srila Prabhupada, but Prabhupada said, if you want to attempt, then you do it through this way, by preaching and sharing this message vigorously, just like I'm doing. Okay, we'll stop here. Mantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jaguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai.